Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we have got an important show today because we're going to talk about father loss through the lifespan. And I know you actually teach about grief and loss through the lifespan, don't you, at Columbia?
I do. BR, you're going to be interested in this, or B, I'm going to call you, because I know you said that's your nickname. What I want to say about that is I designed a class called Traumatic Loss During Childhood, which at Columbia University, which looks at how does a loss impact us over the life course. And we will be talking more to you today, B, about this, because you are a great example of how it does. And I mean, grief transforms and changes, and it definitely changes us. Father loss through the lifespan is what we will be talking about. Our guest today is B.R. Duray. He goes by B, and he is an author, film director, screenwriter, and entrepreneur. He is the author of the book, The Mood Swing, a children's picture book, which was inspired by his own experience with the loss of his dad at a young age. And you can see in the background, that is part of the cover of his book, which I love. BR is the founder of Moontree Studios, a multimedia production company dedicated to bringing light and healing magic to children and families across the world. So welcome to our podcast, B.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for what you both do. I know that this form of healing and these sorts of stories are what helped me and my family a lot. So I'm really grateful.
Tell us about your dad.
So my dad passed when I was 10. He was military, former military. Actually, like it's figuring out all that he did is a bit of a family legend, but he was special forces and had a stint in intelligence, and so had a very an incredible career as a hero. Really fought for the country. He ended up dying of cirrhosis, and so I like to think that a lot of the reason that he passed was one, injuries he sustained when he was fighting were really painful, and it was hard to sort of live through them. But I think also mentally there was a lot as well. That my dad was a Vietnam era guy, and so there wasn't a lot of PTSD help and things like that. So after, I think through his death at an early age, I kind of saw a lot of grief's effects, how it comes in waves throughout life, because I'm 30 years old now. So I've lived twice my life without him than I did with him. But he has a way of showing up still to this day in his own way. And so The Mood Swing was really a story that I've had in my heart for a while, of wanting to tell kind of what I experienced, at least emotionally, after his death, because I was a sensitive kid even before he passed. Probably why I became like a storyteller and filmmaker and all that. But when he did die, I actually had big sort of mood swings, big ups and downs, a lot of anxiety, and I was so worried about something happening to my mom for a while. And so I ended up going through a lot of uh, counseling and training that just helped me to understand my own system, my own emotions, which I think when you're 10, you just don't really spend a lot of time doing that. So it kind of was always just something in my heart that I knew. Like, I read a bunch of stories. My mom told me stories that helped me go through grief when I was that age. And I was like, I always wanted to give something back. And so The Mood Swing was sort of my way to kind of turn it into a whimsical story of balancing our ups and downs of life, specifically after death.
I love this idea. Can you show us the book? I love the
Yes.
book. It's such a great book.
Is the Moon Tree. It's what my studio is named after too. And it's basically about this magical land on top of a hill that has this swing and a boy named Peter, which is my father's name. When he comes and rides it, when he's with both of his parents at the beginning of the story, he's all happy, and the swing at the top blasts him off on this journey throughout outer space, and he gets to fly through the stars and meet aliens and all the fun things that were like my dream as a kid. But then when he comes back a year later, he's just with his mom, and his dad's no longer with him. And instead of looking up at the top of the swing and excited about an adventure, instead he gets scared and looks down and falls into a pit of quicksand. And I say through the help of this swing and his mom being his grounding rock, he learns how to find the balance of just riding the swing.
So B, remind me of how old you were when your dad died?
10.
10. That's really young. And what is unique about losing a dad? I mean, here you are, a 10-year-old. I'm guessing all your friends had dads, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they did. Well, my mom, superhero, tried to be both.
Mm.
Um, and she worked full time and was full-time mom and full-time dad. So, if I think she sacrificed a lot is the simple answer to just try her best to fill an impossible role for one person to have to fill. But I also felt like my community, all the dads that were like my friends' dads came out and they were I had many father figures. My next book will just be probably father figures because I think when you do lose a parent, I found at least that so many people came out, whether it was just like from the sports angle, like, hey, you got to come out and you got to play football and do this, or whether go on a fishing trip, or sometimes just guys that would, take me to a barbecue. Um, so I do feel like there was, especially losing a dad, there was a lot of people that came and tried to fulfill the void.
Was your dad active military?
He was retired by the time he passed.
And you were in a kind of a settled community, so you weren't moving around or anything.
Right, right. I grew up in Encinitas. We were in Encinitas, California, which is San Diego. But yeah, no, he lived on the military base at the time. My mom and dad were divorced at the time, actually, of his when he passed. And so the military life was there because we lived on the base for part of our time, but it was mostly again something that after he died was almost this like thing that we knew. Obviously, he was military and had done an incredible career, but figuring it out, the storyteller in me is still to this day trying to figure out everything because a lot of it's classified and stuff. So
Well, I love that you brought in father figures because there's things that your mom and women in general can step into roles, and there's things that they can't.
hmm
Worked with 9/11 families for many, many years, and after their fathers had died, the kids. And one of the main things that they needed to know is how to tie a tie, you know,
yeah. Oh wow.
right? I mean, how to do those kind of things. And it was interesting because in interviewing the kids that I worked with, the things that they missed the most was wrestling with their father.
Before I went to bed at night, my favorite thing was he would teach me about the angels. Like he loved teaching me like the archangels, the guardian angels, the seraphim, cherubim. For some reason, he always liked teaching me about that. So when he passed, I remember that my affinity for angels, for space, for wonder, and all that really was inspired by him. But I actually remember too, my next door neighbor, Franco, actually taught me how to tie a tie on my first time I had to wear a tie. And my mom was like, I don't know what to do. Go ask your neighbor. So
I
Franco
love
taught me.
just the death of your father and the fact that you didn't have a father for many, many years. Has it impacted the work that you've done?
Yeah, I think if you look back at the films and the screenplays I've written, they almost all have an element of whether it's an element of loss or an element of belief in something that you can't see with your eyes. Because I think losing my dad early on, it actually, I think I learned how to feel him and see him in ways that wasn't just physical. Um, and he would come in waves in like different parts of my life. So every like coming of age moment I sort of had, whether it was like my first serious girlfriend or first time or graduating, it would pop back in at those points in a different way. I would feel it a different way. I didn't know what it was at first. I think at the time, so my now fiance, Michelle, I remember one time I just was sad. I just woke up one day, I was just sad. And I was we were almost trying to figure it out, I was like, did I eat something? Was something happened at work, whatever. And it almost kind of like hit me like a ton of bricks that I was like, oh, here's the person that I'm gonna marry. And and my dad doesn't know her, at least in the way that my mom knows her.
Mhm.
So it took a minute to investigate what it was because I feel like I don't always have the conscious thought of what my feeling is, which is also what the mood swing is like it's a bit of trying to figure out, okay, you feel things physically, but what does it mean mentally and emotionally? So I remember that one really specifically. That was a more recent one where I just was like really sad. It was grief. Like grief has a weird way of showing up in different emotions. So it's hard to sometimes, you know, find it exactly that it's grief at the bottom of it. That was one of them.
So when you've gotten in these places where you felt waves of grief and not felt well, what has helped you?
Well, I've developed a very personal relationship with him where I do feel like my dad is with me in a way always. So I think I've always you know, I talk to him in my own way. I pray. Um, that always helps heal me when I see pictures of him. It doesn't feel like he's too far away. It feels like he's very close, but I've like worked on trying to like foster that sort of a relationship over the years with him. And then sometimes it's just being able to talk about it. You know, I have again amazing fiance, amazing mom, amazing sister. We all talk about him very openly, and it's not something to avoid. And so that really helps. And then writing, and that's probably why for a living, why I do tell stories is because I can really channel to the root of it in my work, and in the storytelling. And it might take on different forms, but the seed is sort of that grief and that lack of control and that lack of understanding.
Interesting. It's so fascinating to hear you talk about this because we're seeing it through the trajectory. You're still
Right.
touching base with
20
it,
years.
and it is still bringing you to new kind of mysteries and realizations, and
Yes.
so
Exactly.
fascinating.
Well, and it's interesting because you know this, B, as we go through the life course and age, we need different things from our parents. And
Hmm.
you probably are talking to your dad and thinking about your dad in different ways, depending on how old you are and what you're dealing with developmentally and in your life.
Yes. I mean, there have been times, some of the work I do, I do documentaries internationally. And so we'll be in places where it's sometimes hard work, sometimes it's a little scary work. And so I feel like I have a kind of I ask for courage from him. I ask for strength. And I think because he was military and very courageous and had that strength too, I think I have a very romanticized relationship with him too that I'm aware of. I think if he was alive, I probably would lean on him way less than I actually do in his absence. Because if he was alive, all of his imperfections and everything would be very apparent every day. And I think that is the
So
blessing. And
he wouldn't be with you all the time. My brother
right.
is always in some way, shape, or form in my memory or around me. And
Yeah.
if he's physically here, he wouldn't be.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's the blessing and the curse of the whole thing. I mean, all the worst and hardest parts of our life are always the best and most beautiful when enough time passes, right? That I'm a firm believer of. But I think the power that it gave, the blessing that it gave was this sort of, I feel like I have a personal guardian angel. I feel like I'm never really alone, and I also feel like that it opened my heart up because it broke early. It opens you up to a lot of things, a lot of feelings, a lot of understanding, a lot of empathy that when your heart doesn't break open, you don't have. And so I'm like, I think all the best parts about my life now, I can stem back to not only his loss, but also just the way that my mom's strength and command, what it brought out of everybody to rise to that occasion became all of our superpowers, to deal with it.
Definitely an example in that what you're talking about is a great example of post-traumatic growth. Like
Hmm.
you said, you've all got superpowers now. So what
Hmm.
would you say to a parent that as a 10-year-old that has just lost a dad
Hmm.
and doesn't know what to do? What advice would you give them?
You know, my mom was so strong. I don't know if this is good or bad advice, but I know it worked for me. Like my mom was dealt with her grief in a way that I never saw. And what I saw was somebody that was there and that was present and that was strong and encouraging and optimistic and hopeful and wanted to talk about them and wanted to put me into counseling that would help me work through it. And if I felt like I wasn't having a father figure, she put me into the Big Brother, Big Sister program. She was just so proactive in being like, let me, like, I'm going to help and be strong in every way I can. And I know she probably had her own journey through the grief, but she didn't let me see that it shook her or made her scared. And I don't know the science behind whether that's good or bad, but I know that for me, it actually made me feel uh, like I could express what I needed to express and go through what I needed to go through, and that I had stable ground under me during that. And I thought that that was really powerful. I also feel like leaning on the community, because it does take a village, it takes a tribe to heal any family. I don't think anyone can really do it on their own very effectively. So I think community, um, and I think kind of having a way to honor and keep present the one that's died. And I think maybe some kids, like my sister, handled it a little different than me at first. I think I was very willing and open to want to talk about it, address it. My sister was a little bit, it took her a while to even want to talk about it or address it. I think it was sort of a closed door for a while. So my
How
mom kind of
old was she?
2 years older than me. So she was just more mature and aware of everything going on at 12, especially, and she's a, girl. She was just smarter. I was sort of aloof in a way in my world, and I think she knew all the steps leading up to with much more clarity. And he was sick for a while, so it wasn't, it had its ups and downs. So I think it just hit her in a way that was a little different than me. So she had her own relationship with it that I think my mom had to learn how to do the dance of like, okay, what worked for me didn't work for her. What worked for her didn't work for me. So I suppose if you're a parent and you're going through it, I don't think there's an exact science. I think it's if maybe it's like listening and trying to learn your kids and what they are and what they need, because I think it'll be very different amongst the different kids. And this may be a weird analogy, but I'm a director, so a lot of times when I'm directing actors on a set, my job, I think of it like a janitor with like a set of keys, like a big ring of keys, and like every key opens up a different door in the building you have to clean. And so like every actor has a different process, and as a director, your job is to learn it and learn how to unlock it. You don't just do your process on every actor, you learn theirs. And I think maybe, as a parent, it's a similar thing. Like you gotta find the right key to unlock your kid and know them, and it's not going to be necessarily what every book says or what everyone says. It's really just the relationship uniquely. So I'm not a parent, but that on being on the other end of it, I
I
think
get
that
it.
would work kind
Right.
of
And
well.
again, I'm thinking that you have had to find the key to undo your lock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And maybe this book is part of it. And I know that you say it's a love letter to your dad, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I love that, BR.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And I guess I would tell all parents out there, if you've had a spouse die or a partner, please go get the book, The Mood Swing. If your child has lost a parent, it sounds like the book, The Mood Swing, is really something that you need to get.
Absolutely. And BR, tell us where people can see they're probably going to want to look at some of your movies and whatever.
Yes.
Tell us all about
Yes.
you and where they can find you and where they can get your book.
So the Mood Swing's available on Amazon. It's also available directly through the website, which is just moodswing-media.org. There's also a film that I directed that goes along with the movie that's premiering this summer in LA, and then it'll be available on YouTube probably by July or August at the latest. It's also called the Mood Swing short film. So
I love it. And I know you have a trailer for it on your website.
yes,
Great. I loved watching it.
I use a pen name with this book and with my book. So B.R. Duray, it actually came from my father, who wrote about his war exploits. Never got a chance to publish it, but he wrote under that name, so it was my homage to him. My my real name is Matt Thompson, and so my work, if you want to actually see,
What?
yeah, you want to see, yeah,
I love this. You're like
yeah.
your dad. You're like in the Secret Service.
I just felt like, there's films I make that are films for not families and kids, and then
Yeah.
there are things for families and kids, and
I
so
love
I've tried to keep the magic of B.R. Duray alive and keep his spirit alive with that stuff. And so all the things I do under that name are things meant for families, for kids,
Well,
and then. But so I've done a couple movies and a TV show coming out soon, called Out of Office, which is a travel show coming out. And then there's a food documentary called Food 2050 that I made. And there's a movie called Magic Carpet Rides that I directed on
wow, you're
Tubi.
busy. I have a feeling
Yes.
you're going to do something with your dad's writings, etc., and there's going to be something that happens with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That is it's sitting right there on my shelf one day.
Oh, yeah, it's calling to you. I can feel it.
Hey, thank you so much for being on our show today. It's been great, and good luck with your book.
Thank
And
you.
I know you're going to help a lot of people.
B, I love this conversation because so often parents that I work with feel like their kids' lives are destroyed after the death of a parent. And you are an example of how your grief is transformed and you're still very connected with your father and you have joy and purpose and meaning and are doing incredible things with your life.
Thank you so much.
On our show today.
Thanks so much for having me. This was an honor.
And we want to thank
Appreciate
everyone for joining us on the show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.